of the debate right here.
Woo!
So
Hey, everybody.
stay
Welcome
with
to
us
Hold the
for
Mic. Here we
duration. You do
are.
not need to go
Holy
anywhere
crap.
else. And now to
I've already started
tonight's
drinking.
debate
They actually
between
showed up.
President Biden and former President Donald Trump.
I might be a couple in, so who knows what happens tonight.
Nation's highest office. Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day.
Yeah, it sounds good on my end.
Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience.
My brother in here?
Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss.
So for those of you who don't know, I don't drink
will have 2 minutes
because
to answer a question
of meds I usually take.
Each for responses.
So I'm making an exception tonight.
Minute for follow-up,
it's been years.
Response is at the moderator's discretion.
But I think now's the time.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted,
everybody
he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home.
All night.
At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate.
I think it's good that they're not going to have a live audience. What do you think?
No, I think this is everything. I think this is like, let's just get to business. I don't need the horse and pony
please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Folks, how are you?
Hey, Joe. Hope you came ready.
Joe just waved at nobody. There's nobody in the audience.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Stop it. Stop it.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States.
I'm roasting everybody. Oh, look at this man. Lonely as fuck. Lonely at the bottom.
Like I'm trying so hard to be a badass.
God. Why so close?
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the
almost
issue
close
that
enough
voters
for fists, isn't
consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot.
Do you think Trump's going to hold that face?
No,
like
senior
he's
has
still
to
in a
pay more than
mugshot?
$200
the whole time
for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year.
He soiled his Depends.
And we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans.
Joe sounds hoarse.
So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given
The
them
mandates
back
came under him, most
a
of them.
country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thanks to your
Thank you,
tariffs,
President Biden.
Donald.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he's the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that
Get him, Joe.
we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion.
He's shaking his head to that, by the way.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. Go ahead,
He's
Trump.
the only president
Lean in
other
on
than
your
Herbert
bullshit.
Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up.
I don't know where Joe's going with that one.
10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history.
He heard
That's
what he
why
wanted.
We had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money
Because
like
of your tariffs
a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't
His,
know what
his
they were
tax
doing. It
laws
was the
actually
worst-
just kicked into
probably the
place, which
worst
is now paying more
administration in
taxes.
history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the
So you
history
admit
of
you
our
set it all
country's
up
life.
then?
President
You
Trump,
admit you
over
set
the
up
last 8
Afghanistan then.
years, under
Thank
both
you.
of your administrations, the national debt
Yeah, every
soared
time
to
that,
record highs. And
Trump
according to a new
sniffles,
nonpartisan
I'm drinking.
analysis, President Trump, your administration
Don't.
approved $8.4
You don't need your
trillion
wife taking you to the
in new
hospital.
debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred that tax.
Was it a
Now,
horrible recovery,
when we
or
cut the
was it the
taxes,
best?
As an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never
not
before.
accurate.
And we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with.
Look at the way
we
Joe
gave
just
him
looked at
something
him.
great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people
Joe is
died
just
under his
staring him
administration
down.
than our administration.
Well, that
and
was
we
total
were right in the
bullshit
middle
what he
of
just
it,
said.
something which
Yeah.
a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration.
Come on, Joe.
He
Where's
did
my
a
book?
mandate, which is a disaster.
need to start keeping track of the
mandating it.
lies.
The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job.
Vaccine came out when he
And
was
I will
president,
tell you,
by the way.
not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
He didn't,
President Trump,
shit.
we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID.
He has Trump's tax
dealing
cuts.
with everything we have to do
the CBO,
with,
just for everybody's record.
Look,
it pretty much added 2.2 trillion.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you,
to our national debt.
President Trump.
That was horrible.
Well, he's right.
Yeah.
He did beat Medicare. He beat it
That
to
was
death,
horrible.
and he's destroying
Yeah.
Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting
I
them
need to
on
take a deep
Medicare.
breath.
They're putting them on Social
take a drink
Security.
of
They're
water.
going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to
dictators.
the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people.
You are stupid.
What we're doing for
They
other
think you're
countries,
stupid.
and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President
Says
Trump.
the
Dana?
says the
This
felon.
is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump,
Kind of surprised they're
you take credit
asking
for the
us.
decision to overturn Roe v.
I'm waiting
Wade,
for this.
which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole
Yeah, I don't believe
question
them.
that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals,
What?
conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was, an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing.
Yeah, but Ohio is
Texas
literally trying to
different,
rewrite their
Florida's
laws
different.
to go
But
against
they're
their
all making their own decisions right
constituents.
now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But You have to get elected also. And
Do you see how he
because that
talks
has
in
to
knots
do with
like
other
that?
things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they
Like,
will
read that as a
take the life
transcript.
of a child in the
It-
8th
it
month,
literally
the
is
9th
like
month, and even
gobbledygook,
after birth. After
where he's
birth,
giving
if
an
you look
answer,
at
but then
the
at the same
former
time he just,
governor
like,
of Virginia,
finishes it with-
he
there's no
was
actual
willing
period to
do
his
this.
sentences.
He said, "We'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby," meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you.
Not in
President
your
Biden?
favor,
It's been
dude.
a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided.
Go, Joe.
Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing
I know you
about
guys
it.
don't
And
want
they
to hear
try arrest
this.
them when they cross state
This
lines.
isn't
Thank
going
you.
well.
There have been many young women murdered by
I'm
the
gonna need
same
Joe to
people
really
he
take
allows
a
to
moment
come
to himself.
across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous
They
place
overprepped
anywhere
him.
in the world. Considered the most dangerous
Yeah,
place
he's
anywhere in the
jumping
world.
around where he should
and
not
he
be.
opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and
And he
killing
just set himself
women.
up for this.
And it's
Yep.
a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases,
He's lobbing
it's
softballs over the
frankly a
plate,
very
and
liberal
Trump's hitting
decision.
them.
In many cases, it's the
Yeah.
opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
Thank you.
So that
Go ahead,
means
Joe.
he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some
After
states,
birth?
Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican.
Is this
Nobody
guy
wants it to
stupid?
happen.
No, he's
That
playing.
is simply not true. The Roe v.
Call him.
Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think
Joe,
that's a
call
good
him out,
thing.
man.
We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the
Yeah,
law.
it says the
51
criminal
years, constitutional scholarship
rapist.
said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if
That's
the
51 years
MAGA
of history
Republicans, he gets elected,
for the
and
whole
MAGA
put the baby
Republicans
down
control the
bullshit.
Congress, and they pass a
You can call it out.
universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of
was a good
immigration and
hit.
border security. President Biden, a record
And that's
number
why your
of
mic's muted,
migrants
bitch.
have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch.
Shut the
Overwhelming
fuck
border
up.
states
Thank you.
and overburdening cities such as
Thank
New
you,
York
Mike.
and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to
Brother,
get a
this one's to
bipartisan
you.
agreement that not only
Cheers.
changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the.
It looks like he's finding his footing.
The total initiative.
He has a
relative to
stutter.
what we
He is
can
always
do.
going to have a stutter,
More
but he
Border
looks like he's
Patrol
finding his footing.
and more,
You're right.
Asylum officers.
President Trump?
That was a good
I
hit.
really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country.
I'm not cursing in this episode. I'm not
All he
going
had
to
to do
curse.
is leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol,
In those last 2 months of my
who
presidency.
endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president.
Yo.
Brandon, just speak to him.
Oh,
But
help me.
Look, we had the safest border in history.
Oh, help me.
Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything
the
like
wine's
it.
kicking in.
And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers, That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump,
Call him
on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, incling those who have jobs, including
Are the
those
hosts supposed
whose
to call them out
spouses are
unauthorized?
citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world.
Definitely not saying their names properly.
And it had a
That
huge
isn't what he
impact on
said.
everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen.
How many times do you think he's going to say
Migrant crime.
20 times?
I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen
That's
before.
12.
And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and he just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible.
And you don't give a
what's
shit
taking
about all the
place.
kids
What's
that are
taking
killed
place in our country.
by
We're
guns, you
literally
piece of garbage.
an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living
And that's the
in
thing. He
luxury
doesn't understand
hotels
that
in New York
immigrants
City and
pay
other
taxes
places.
into the
Our
communities
veterans
that
are
they're
on
a
the
part
street.
of.
They're dying because he doesn't
Probably more
care
than
about
this
our veterans.
douchebag
He doesn't
does.
care. He doesn't like the military at all.
No, they had so much
And he
more.
doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans.
No, you
taking care
didn't.
of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved.
Just a reminder from a veteran, the Republicans voted against like so many veteran bills. He's a lying piece of trash.
By far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is
nobody
great.
in his family served in the military, by the way.
So many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day.
Biden's about to lose his shit.
Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act.
Boom.
1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it.
Stare him down and tell all these.
Because
Go ahead, Joe.
Dead at him.
Whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that.
Thank you.
We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in
How did Trump think that was a smart comment to make?
D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Ooh, damn!
Go ahead, Joe.
Damn!
Go ahead, Joe.
Quote, suckers and losers.
I'll drink to
They
that.
made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19.
And never sued anybody.
You're the
Think of this.
loser.
Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up.
So glad.
There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others,
look at
say
Joe staring
suckers
at
and
him like,
losers.
"You
We have
dumb
19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up.
God.
Just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up. Just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop
just throwing
was
numbers
Russia
out. He's just throwing numbers.
disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation.
Wow.
He made up the
Not to
suckers
get
and losers, so
personal.
he should apologize to me right now.
No, you're a piece
Four-star
of shit.
general standing at your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's
Bringing up the
war
skull,
against
I'll give that to Joe.
Ukraine, which
I'll give that
is
to
now
Joe.
in its third
Definitely.
year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers
Stay on
can't
topic,
stand this
fuckboy.
guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst.
I'm a veteran and I
commander-in-chief,
love Joe.
That's what you call him.
And I think
Thank you,
Donald
Brian.
Trump is a
They
domestic
can't stand
terrorist.
him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them.
No.
And that's based on every single bit of information.
Look at
As
him laughing.
far as
Look at Joe
Russia
laughing
and
at him.
Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin.
He just destroyed you,
He
bro.
would have
Shut
never- he would
up.
have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those
I
numbers.
love how
maybe triple
literally
those numbers.
Trump is not answering the
He did
question right
nothing
now,
to
which
stop
has
it.
to
In fact,
do
I
with
think he
Ukraine. Do
encouraged
not forget
Russia
the
from going
question.
in. I'll
How
tell
many
you what
veterans
happened.
we
He
got in
was
the
so
comment
bad
sections
with
that hate this
Afghanistan. It was
motherfucker?
such a
Right now, I want to know.
Oh, man. Give us a
embarrassing,
shout out, all the
Give us a
most
shout out.
in the history of our country. That when
And by the
Putin
way, if
watched
you're
that and
watching,
he saw the
give us a
incompetence,
follow,
he should
subscribe.
have
We
fired
love
those
you.
generals like I fired
Hey,
the ones
subscribe,
that you
hit the
mentioned.
notification button.
And so he's
Right
got
now,
no
we're just
love
doing this
lost.
for you
But he
guys,
should
man.
have
We're putting
fired
this,
those generals. No general got fired.
doing this so we
for
can
the
all be
most
together.
embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left
Ryan, you wanna
American
talk about what kind
citizens
of,
behind.
materials
when
were left
Putin saw
behind?
that, he said,
When
"You
they
know
say
what?
billions of dollars?"
I think we're going to go in and maybe take my
Old
this
equipment,
was his
stuff that doesn't
dream.
work
I
anymore.
talked to him about it. His dream. The difference
Coca-Cola
is he
machines,
never would have invaded
barracks.
Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded.
Deb, we see you, girl.
in
They weren't
3
invaded.
years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for
He
Hamas.
abandoned our
They had
allies,
no
the
money for
Kurds, just to
anything.
remind everybody.
No money for terror.
Yeah.
That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
Did he answer the
President
question?
No.
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. But the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encouraged him.
We've seen the transcripts, Trumpy.
And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish. Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops.
Get him, Joe.
500,000 troops.
President Trump, if
I never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question,
he
which
can't.
is,
He can't
are
contain it. He's
Putin's
starting to lose his
terms
shit.
acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine.
Acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money.
But
I
no
don't
troops.
think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman
Just answer
ever.
the fucking question,
and I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened.
So he just wants to let Russia have it.
That war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people.
Yep.
And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when
Nope.
if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, and by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's that's why we're strong.
It's
Thank
really
you.
interesting
Moving
to see
on to the
fact
Middle
versus
East.
fiction.
Good
Like,
answer.
You're just seeing the bullshit,
Hamas
right?
attacked
That was a good
Israel,
answer.
killing more than 1,000 people and
Yep.
taking hundreds of hostages.
Started
Among
rough,
those held
but-
and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans.
He's getting it.
Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward
here
a
we go.
proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war.
I want to hear what
The only
Trump's
one who wants
response is
the war
to
to
this.
continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard
He's gonna talk about the
get them
border
to
watch.
accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on
Brought
Israel.
everybody together.
No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped.
Yeah, Joe definitely stepped up the world for that one.
We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're two different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue
when his
to send
face
our
gets like
experts
that, Trump's
and our
like,
intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas
Get ready for the bullshit.
like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for what using certain weapons among
he
population
said
centers.
the terrorists should be eliminated.
Yeah.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have
This
an ocean
motherfucker.
separating us.
Here we go.
The European nations together have spent $100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got
So
them
if
to
they
put
have an
up
ocean
hundreds of
separating us,
billions
then
of
how are they
dollars.
getting to the southern border?
Secretary-General of
Just a
NATO
quick
said
question.
Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on
Remember,
them because
Trump
of
wants to pull us out of
location,
NATO.
because we have an ocean in between.
And
You
ran
gotta ask them, as far as
$8.2
Israel
trillion
and
up
Hamas
in 4 years.
Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO?
Thank
You're
you.
going to pull out of NATO.
Thank you.
The idea that we have
Go ahead, Joe.
our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but are we ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places.
How'd that slap feel,
What happens
Donald?
then? He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
You know, Joe's coming
President
in
Trump,
solid,
just
man.
to follow
Yeah,
up,
he is.
would you support the creation
Thank
of an
God.
independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European
You
nations.
made horrible trade deals.
I want everybody to
Because if
pay
you add them
attention.
up,
He
they're
does
about the
not
same
answer the
size
question.
economically.
Not one question.
Their
We all
economy
know.
is about the same size as
This
the
is what we're
United
gonna get.
States. And they were no cars, no. They don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I
Does
changed
this have
is they don't
anything
wanna
to do with
pay.
the question, guys?
And the only reason that
is it
he
even
can
accurate?
play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said,
I feel like this is.
and he's right
I
about
feel like this is the
I
kid
said,
who literally
"No,
did not
I'm
do
not going
the
to support
fucking
NATO if
homework
you don't pay.
Yeah.
and is just
They
like
asked
trying
me
to
that
bullshit
question,
through
would you guard
this
us
now.
against Russia?
He
At a very
focused on
secret
NATO,
meeting
and he
of
did
the
not think about
28,
any other topics to talk about
states
today.
at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the
He
next
doesn't know
day
where
and the next
Palestine
months.
is.
But now we're in the same position.
I
We're
want Joe to
paying
be like, you know where
everybody's
Palestine
bills.
is?
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021.
Ooh, here we go.
After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few.
Did I tell you he's going to come back to the border?
On January 6th, we were energy
Yep.
independent. On January 6th, we
There it
had the
is.
lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were
Apparently I'm
respected
drinking
all
with the
over the
border. That's what
world.
I'm doing.
All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point
Cut
we'll
his
be
fucking
talking
mic
about,
off.
where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021,
Back to my question.
and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because
that's not accurate.
I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it, too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her.
This
and
is
she
literally
now admits
him trying to whitewash
she
history
turned it
right now in
down.
front of us.
And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
This is the longest 80 seconds.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases.
61
cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He didn't do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down...
Kick rocks, dude.
Many other cities. You go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of the...
There was no National Guard.
They took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee,
bring up the
which
fact that they smeared
basically
feces all over the
two
walls.
horrible
The
Republicans
Unselect
that
Committee.
are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats. They destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right.
He shouldn't have shown up.
We were right. And they deleted
He
and
shouldn't have
destroyed
shown
all
up.
of the information. They should go to jail for that.
You know what? I'm
If a
actually glad of this
Republican did
because this
that,
is
they'd go to
America's getting a
President
taste of what Trump is
Biden,
like
I want to give you a
again.
minute.
The only
had a
person on this
NMP.
stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at.
Oh,
The
shit!
fact of the matter is, he is
Oh,
what he's telling you is
shit!
simply not true.
Pulled out the Trump
The
card.
fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who was convicted, deserves to be
Thank you,
convicted.
Joe.
The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors,
Sleepy Joe.
broke the window,
I can just hear that
occupied
pour.
offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea
man said,
that those
he's a
people
felon
are
on this.
He
patriots.
held on to that for 40 minutes, bro.
When I asked him
Yes,
about
he
first
did.
the two debates we had,
And then his
that
right
first time
pocket
around,
just pulled it right out.
I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
Look at him, you
I'm gonna,
coward piece
give you
of...
a minute, President Trump.
He
for
won't
a
even look
follow-up
at him.
question I
That was a
have.
great end, though. What are you going to do?
After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
I was going to stare
Well,
at
I
him.
said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country
That's
successful
not what you said.
again, because right now it's a failing nation. my retribution is going to be a success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level.
Yeah,
his
but
son
he
is
isn't.
convicted,
At a
been
very high
convicted
level.
probably
You hear his
numerous other
bullshit?
times.
Yeah.
Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things.
What
all
a
of
horrible
the death cars
answer.
at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. We're not going to do anything.
Rejection
We're not
over
going to
here.
give you $1 billion unless
Didn't
you
you get
change your
impeached for this?
prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two,
Look at
the
him,
idea
you
that
coward.
you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are
Trump's a little
still charged
bitch.
with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions
Sorry,
of
my
dollars
lips
do
are
you
getting
owe
a
in
little-
civil
You're-
penalties
you're-
for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having
Dog
sex
walking.
with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant. I mean,
Get him.
What are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ,
Joe
into
with
the
these
Manhattan DA's
1950s
office
disses,
to start
man. Go
that
ahead,
case.
Joe.
That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal.
Yo, man, they
He
talk about these
basically
debates
went
and have those
after
zingers.
his
That was a
political
zinger right
opponent
there.
because
Oh
he
my
thought it was
God.
going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any
bring
campaign
back that,
has ever
Friends
taken.
episode
Hundreds
where
of
she's saying about
millions of
smelly
dollars
cat.
came pouring in
That's not to be
because
Trump,
the
man.
public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win
Smelly
fair and square.
cat,
Thank you,
smelly
President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans
Go ahead, Phoebe.
are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming on. he's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany.
Deliver it, Joe.
And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him.
Go
They
ahead,
said,
Joe.
"What do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides."
Yep.
What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? And this is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said.
Boom.
This guy
The
has no
Autobahn.
sense of
The
American
Autobahn.
democracy.
That was
President
about it.
Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance.
How do you know it isn't?
He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's
I don't get
ridiculous.
stuck in
We
his
have a
bullshit.
debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question,
Oh, fuck, I need
the
more.
worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every anchor every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just
Did
the
he
other
just
day
say-
it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows
I know,
that,
Joe. I have
and
the
he
same
didn't run
face right
because of
now. It's
Charlottesville.
okay.
He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden?
And debunk. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president.
Wild.
Didn't deserve to be president at all.
It's
and
almost
the
like
idea that he's talking
Trump as an
about
old man doesn't
all this
realize how
being
technology
fabricated.
works. So you can just
We
go back
saw
and
with our
rewatch
own
the
eyes.
clip.
We saw what happened on January 6th.
It's called
We saw the
YouTube,
people
bro.
breaking through the windows.
Old
We saw
motherfucker,
people
man.
occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time.
Boom!
His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why?
Oh!
Why? They know
Hit
him
him.
well.
Hit him with it.
Why are they not endorsing him?
Hit
Thank
him
you,
with
President
it.
Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the
Damn!
CNN presidential debate.
Ended it right there. Trump is. Oh, you know he's pissed.
Oh, he's mad.
Wow.
So let's
All
see.
right, Ryan. This is the midway point. What do you think right now?
We knew
What we're
this was
seeing?
going to be a debate
We don't need
like
to hear
no
Rachel. You can mute
other.
her.
Let me
What do you
Certainly
think?
no
Let's
argument
talk real
there.
quick. What do you think right now from just seeing the first half to this point? A little bit of a rocky start we both talked about, but where do you think this is going?
I mean, like you said, the beginning was rough. I was a little worried after the first couple questions. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But
But then that liquor kicked in.
hey, I was getting drunk for one of two reasons: either to get through it or get over how bad it was.
Okay.
But no, I think Joe's delivering. I've got three solid. I wrote down the times that he delivered the three what I call knockout punches.
Okay.
Just so we can go clip them later and share them.
All right.
I think
Got a little rope-a-dope action happening.
I mean, like you said, I think he settled in. Maybe he was a little nervous and it was making his stutter worse or something. I don't know,
Happens.
but he definitely settled in,
Yep.
and has started delivering. He's hitting him with facts. He's literally fact checking him on a couple of things live, which I think is great. I think if you're watching those two right now, Biden actually seems more cognitively there because he's making more sense. Like Trump's talking in circles like that, and he's talking fast and everything, but he's not saying shit.
But nothing. There's no actual data. Like you can say, oh, there's thousands happening. This is this and that and that, and
I mean,
we did this and then we did three things here and we did that. It's none of it is actual.
He's
factual,
lied so many
right?
times. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is that's the biggest issue about this is that you can't pinpoint the bullshit when it's all just being spewed at you, right?
Yeah.
He's a con man. He's an absolute con man, and look,
Yep.
he's a master of his craft. I got to give it to him. He has the gift of gab. He has that.
Oh,
We
look
all
at
have
what they're
just-
running right now. What is this?
This
Paid
is
for
them-
Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Oh, so you're talking about the ads that are coming out right now.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're golden. There's also an ad that, speaking of, in Pennsylvania, where they actually used all of Trump's voice, talking about going against mailing voting. They used all of his actual quotes,
Yep.
his footage, and so Trump's team and the RNC are trying to sue. They gave him a cease and desist because they're like, you can't use our words against us. That's their argument. That's our actual argument.
So before this is over, what in your opinion, what's the one comment that Trump has made that stuck out to you as just complete nonsense?
Trump trying to whitewash his presidency because
On
he's
January
trying
6th?
Not January 6th, his presidency. The
Okay.
fact that he's trying to sell it as I'm the better person. There'll be no wars. There'll be a better economy. Food will be cheaper. The fact that he's trying to sell this pipe dream,
Yeah.
where it's like you don't have control over those things. We are trying to get the country back in order from a global pandemic.
Yeah.
Mind you, to all of our listeners, we literally have the best GDP in the world. When
Thank
you
you,
put us
Barb.
on the world stage and you look at everybody there, we are doing the best. And
think
we're
it's
talking about what's that?
Nothing, go ahead.
We're talking about we literally bounced back from a global pandemic, and here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Nope.
So it's it's quite interesting to see that just him trying to really paint the picture with what's it called, rose gold glasses.
Yep.
So
let's talk about persistent challenges
here we go.
you
He's
both
back.
faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs, cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done.
What'd you think of that answer,
We've done a
Ian?
great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49
I'm thankful
seconds left.
that you gave me this
What
job
do
here on
you
the
say
show,
to
but I'm gonna
black
need a raise. That's why.
voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed.
I love you,
Inflation
Ryan.
is still
Love you
hurting
too,
them
bro.
badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000.
Just for the
tax
audience,
credit
he owns
to be
half
able to
this
buy
shit,
their
so
first
don't
home
let him.
So they can get started. I made sure that
I'm gonna live rent-free with that joke.
You are.
Families and those black individuals who
I
provide-
definitely
who
want to
have take
see
out student loans
better for
that were
our
ballooned,
generation,
that if they
for
were
buying homes,
engaged in
and B, for
nursing,
just helping close that gap.
and
One thing I can
anything
say.
having to do with volunteerism. If they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad.
Has nothing to
He
do with what
caused the
question is.
inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled,
See, this dude
tripled,
doesn't
and
like.
quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore.
See, he's not
He
getting real
caused this
statistical data.
inflation. I gave him.
Well, not only that, but he
a
doesn't
country
understand what
with
he's done to
essentially
inflation.
no inflation. It was
Like-
perfect. It was so
He's a
good. All he had to
narcissist.
do is
It's
leave
not
it
about him.
alone. He destroyed
It's
it with
all the
his
deflecting
Green New
onto everybody
Scam and
else.
all this money that's being
Green
thrown
New
out the
Scam.
window. He caused inflation.
He's
As
trying to talk
sure
about the
as
Green
you're
New Deal,
sitting
but he
there,
called it a scam.
the
Old
fact
man
is
moment.
that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're
Oh, my
taking
God.
black jobs now.
the border.
And it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet. but
And
you're
that's
gonna
why
see
they
something
told
that's
all
gonna
the
be the
Republican
worst in
people
our
not
history.
to
Thank
pass
you.
any
President
border
Biden?
legislation so that he could
There
use
was no
that
inflation
over and over.
When I
That's
became
correct.
president, you know why? The
Also, keep in
economy was
mind,
flat on its back.
Trump
15%
added
unemployment.
4.8
He decimated
trillion
the economy.
before
Absolutely
COVID
decimated the economy.
to
That's why there was no
our,
inflation at the time.
debt.
There were no jobs.
Trump,
Provided
Biden has
thousands of
added
millions of
2.2
jobs for
trillion
individuals
that has nothing
who
to do
are
with
in all
COVID.
communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they
With
have health
COVID,
insurance. We have
include
covered,
3.6
the ACA
trillion
has
for
increased.
Trump,
I made sure
and with
that
Biden,
the
it's 2.1. So no matter what, it's still Trump spending more money.
Well, that's gonna get
This
you
guy
blocked,
wants to eliminate
Savannah,
that. They
Lynn.
tried 50 times. He wants to
Okay.
get rid of the ACA again.
Promoting
And we're gonna
RFK
try
on
again if they
my
win.
live on
We find
TikTok.
ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing anything.
I don't think so.
We put
You
more
got the
police
wrong
on the
Ryan
street
today,
than
son.
any
Yep.
administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he
4.8
handled the
trillion is what
pandemic.
he's talking
Thank
about.
you. Another
It has nothing to do with
persistent
the pandemic.
challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the
105
country
here
are
today.
confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels.
Yeah.
Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every
and every single one of them should be fired for
and what he's
supporting
done to
a
the
rapist and a criminal and a
population is
felon and a
horrible,
fraud.
Including the fact
remember
that
how
for
many
10 years he
off-duty
called them
cops were there
super
at J6.
predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the
is there something wrong with the sound, guys?
Blacks, and that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever the best numbers.
Sorry to complain.
He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for
I'm gonna talk
Hispanics.
back here.
But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
38
Flip,
seconds left, President Trump. Will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So
Flip, turn the show down a little bit.
Absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it.
We might be a little tipsy too. It could be that.
The best numbers ever.
We're getting drunk. We're gonna get drunk. We're gonna get loud
together.
We're
using all forms of energy, all forms, everything, and yet during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers.
Love you, Flip.
And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
Anybody that advises you isn't worth listening to.
The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like.
Did Trump talk about clean coal?
In college are doing any way student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech.
Still trying to figure out what the fuck he's talking
where
about.
The idea that he is
what do you think of this comedy, Em?
to have done something that had the cleanest water. The cleanest water. He hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back.
It's like you can't help but be racist.
Is climate change.
He just
he should call them. Well, usually he says the black.
Do all that I've done.
Just remember that
was going to cost us $1 trillion. And
so
China
some improvement.
Nothing,
Watch Joe say it next.
And India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States.
I'm waiting for it.
I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it, and it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything we've not able to, the United States can't get its pollution under control? One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress.
We're all
By
laughing at
2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps.
It looks
And
like
we're
somebody who
we're
read the
moving
book,
in directions
the
that
other
are
one
going to
is making
significantly
all the
change
shit up in this
the
book
elements
report.
of cause of
Yep.
pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price
Get
to
'em, Joe.
$35, which I was calling for, one voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
That's okay, Joe.
So every day,
That's okay,
millions of
Andrew, right there.
Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Good question.
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now,
Decent answer.
everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I've been proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. 1%. So no one after, I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are
That
there
would
any
almost be
other
like
measures
trickle-down
that you think
economics.
that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent?
Doesn't
or is
exist.
is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And that's what, and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that he, I believe, supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where I talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians
Turn
all
that
my
knife at the
life.
end.
I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen that he could look you in the face. About so many other things.
By the way,
too.
Trump won't look him in the face.
We mentioned the
'cause he's a little
laptop. We
bitch.
mentioned Russia,
really has not looked over there.
Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's
Answer the
misinformation
question.
and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the
No, it's
military.
not. General
It's a
Milley
disgrace.
confirmed it.
But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens.
Everything keeps coming back to the
What they're
border.
doing to the VA, to our veterans,
Like I said,
is
it's the only thing he has to
unbelievable.
run
Veterans
on,
are living in the
and it's
street,
bullshit.
and these people
As
are living in
a
luxury
reminder,
hotels.
everybody's
he doesn't
watching
know what
this
he's
show.
doing, and it's
Trump
really
called
coming back. I've never seen such anger in
The
our
Speaker
country
of the House
before.
to have them shut
President Biden.
down the
The
vote
idea
on the
that
border
veterans are not
so he
being
could
taken
run on
care
this
of. I
platform.
told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers
Game
and
plan
losers, he said
is
he acknowledged
underway.
after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said
Boom.
it. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest
Watching
growing
Trump's
economy
mannerisms,
in the world.
he really is a
The reason why we
sociopath.
have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world.
Thank you.
And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it. And
4-star general, guys. 4-star
much
general.
More so than him. The other thing is,
has done more for this country than Trump
he doesn't
has.
fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp.
A lot of
They were
people
no
left,
good.
dude.
Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan
withdrawal
horror
that you
show,
set
the
up
most
that you admitted
embarrassing
about
moment in the
45
history
minutes
of
ago?
our
Thank you,
country.
Ryan. Thank you.
He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody?
No,
get
he's
fired
sending
for
more
allowing
money
18 million people,
and resources.
many from prisons, many from mental institutions. Did you fire anybody that allowed our
I really
country
hate
to
that
be
mental
destroyed?
institution bullshit.
Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit
Well,
up
fine, I
here
was
and
looking
waste
at
a
him.
lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's
He's
the
not
worst
the only one that
president
says
in
it,
the
dumb
history of our
fuck.
country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit.
Called executive order.
Yeah, it's called an executive order.
Insignificant.
And now
he wants open borders.
just play it down.
He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen.
Non-citizens can't vote. They can only vote in
Our country doesn't have a
17
chance, not even a
municipalities
chance
across the entire country,
of
just so you
coming
know.
out of this rut. We probably won't have a
Ryan, do
country
you remember what the
left
question
anymore.
was, the
That's how
original
bad it
question?
is.
I don't
He's
even remember the
worst in
freaking question.
history by far.
Thank you, President Trump.
But
President
I'm a little
Biden.
drunk.
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online.
Google it.
59 or 58, don't know the
He
exact
said
number.
Google it.
Presidential historians,
Look it
they've
up.
had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact.
He
That's
can't
not
stand
that's
hearing
not
that. Look at his
conjecture.
face.
He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing
Called him
anything
out.
to deal with child care.
His face turned red. Look at it.
The
question was child care, Ryan.
We should
The question
significantly
was about
increase the child care
child
tax
care.
credit. We should significantly increase the availability.
He
of
went all that
women
way
and men
around
or
over child
single
care.
parents to be able to go back to work, and we should encourage
And Joe
businesses
Biden brought it
to
right
hold-
back to it.
To have
He did.
Thank you, President
child care
Biden.
facilities.
That shows
President Trump,
you-
the question was about what would you
Cognitively
do to
there.
make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me.
What are
I'll
you
show
doing with
Show me.
child care?
And they rate me
What are you
one of the
doing?
best, okay? And if I'm given another
I was
4
just laughing,
years,
like,
I will
my man
be the
can't do
best.
it.
I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us.
see
Nobody
that
ever
Joe
cut
just-
taxes
you see that
like
Joe
us.
just played his ass?
He's the
He
only one
literally
I know.
just
He
had
wants to
him
raise your
trapped.
taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire so everybody,
Yeah.
including
Everybody
the two
pays
of
so that
you,
the middle
will
class
pay
can
4 to
stop
5
getting
times.
screwed.
Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I
see
grow up
that
and I
Biden
see
just did
politicians
the math
talking
class
about
of
cutting
literally
taxes. When
dialing
we
him
cut
up, not
taxes,
even
as I
focused on
said,
what
we
that
did
was.
more business.
Yep.
Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's
Oh,
dead
I'm
wrong
at
about
40 and I forgot the question. So, yeah.
He's increased.
Mine's
He
on
will
point.
increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more.
Get 'em.
Because they're going to have to pay the difference.
Get 'em.
Hitting with numbers.
And
Hitting
all
with
the things that
numbers.
are important. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to
He wants to get rid of
fundamentally
income
bankrupt the
taxes
country.
and taxes
You
on
have the
tips.
largest deficit of any president in American history.
I don't mind
Number
no
one.
tax on tips,
Number
but-
two, you have not, in fact, made any
Get him
contact,
dead in the face telling him this
any
shit.
progress with China. We are at the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
We're at the
President
highest.
Biden.
You lost
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic
him,
impacting
Joe.
millions of
Get him.
Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term.
15
the
minutes
opioid
left, guys. 15
crisis.
minutes
and
left.
for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has
guys,
gone up.
like, subscribe,
Under
hit the
your
notification
term,
button.
it went up. Under
We're
your
doing this
term, it
special
has
for you
gone
guys
up.
for today
Former President
to go
Trump,
through
despite
and
the efforts
see
that both of you have made,
grumpy old men
more than
and see what we can take
100,000
this
Americans
country.
are dying from overdoses
Grumpy,
every year.
drunk old men.
Primarily
Oh,
from
you meant them.
fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they
Or
need?
grumpy old men on this
finish
show.
up,
But
we now
we
have the
definitely do our
largest
show
deficit
live on
in the
Fridays.
history of our country under this guy. We have the
bring all
largest
the
deficit
shenanigans
with
from what
China.
he brings you.
He gets paid by
Yes, we'll
China.
still
He's
be
a
on tomorrow.
Manchurian candidate. He
will
gets
see you
money
for sure
from
tomorrow.
China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country.
And you
he's
added
got the
8.2 trillion of it.
The worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
He's forgetting what
Jake,
the
we were
question.
doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along.
This guy said, I wish you guys would shut up so I could hear the debate. Then what's the point of the watch party? So you just sit here and look at you?
And then we had to get tough, and it was the drugs pouring across the border.
Turn it off.
You're on the wrong
started
channel, my
to
friend.
increase.
Wrong
We got
channel.
great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low, because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him, because the border's so
Sorry,
bad.
what's the rapist say?
But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down.
The question
for
was
a
about
while.
addiction.
And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues and said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the
Wish they'd
throes
call
of
him
addiction
Mr.
right
Trump.
now struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy. And he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars.
I'm getting upset now.
Reporter. I will have him out.
This is why I don't watch
very
him live,
quickly.
Ryan.
As soon as I take office, before
I
take office, I said by literally as soon as I
can we talk over him?
I will have.
I think we should be able to talk over him.
He should have had him out a long
John,
time
we're gonna
ago,
need your permission
but
on
Putin's
that
probably
one.
Can we
asking
talk
for
over him,
billions
John?
and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people.
The Supreme Court, by the way, today struck down
people out, and I paid
families.
essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump.
Deal.
Let's turn to concerns that voters have
the deal with
about
this.
each of you.
Because it would have got them, it would have gave them a green light
86
to get away from
at the
paying.
end of your second term.
That's a good.
How do you address
decision.
concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. The whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people.
He's like, I was around when we invented those chips.
Jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs they call to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before.
Get him.
We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America.
Yes,
all
sir.
Our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and our those who he coddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart. And you
his
have to
own
be able
clubs.
to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
No, he can ride a bike unlike you.
He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was
that turkey
years
neck
ago.
says differently.
I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy, when he was White House staff.
We got his name right this time.
A similar one.
Nancy, we got it right.
And
you got it right this time.
One of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds. Well, he said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
It was a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap,
Let me know if you can carry your own bag.
I've seen you swing. I know you swing. Let's not act like children.
President Trump,
Let's not act like children.
to a specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable.
Say the words.
And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen.
3 hours later.
In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president.
He thinks it's free and
because
fair.
I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me. Because
he
I was
didn't
his
indict
opponent.
you idiot.
I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again.
No, you're here to stay out of prison.
Make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation.
In Trump's mind, America's great when he's not behind bars.
His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane.
No, they're not.
They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive
He didn't
us
start
into
the wars,
World
dumb
War III,
fuck.
and we're closer to World War III than anybody can
And you're
imagine.
the one sucking
We
up
are
to the
very,
dictators.
Very close to World
At
War
least he
III,
knows what World
and he's
War it
driving
is.
us there. And Kim Jong-un and President
Who you have a
Xi of
letter
China,
hanging on
Kim
the
Jong-un
letter
of North
of?
Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing
No, they
going
fear
with
him.
this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all, and required response.
Trump doesn't even know about it. Look at him.
The idea. I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border.
Call it, Joe.
Then you have a war.
Call it.
President Trump, as I come back to
I
you
always
for
thought
a
it was
follow-up,
Kiev.
the question
Yeah.
was, will
Doesn't matter,
you
man. When you 80, you
accept
say the
the
fuck you
results
want.
of this
Am
election,
I wrong? Is he
regardless
right?
of who
Bro,
wins?
when you're that old, you don't
Just
give
to
a fuck.
finish
Say
what he
you want.
said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me.
He helped you get elected, dumb fuck.
But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia.
He only
Ukraine's
practiced
not
3
winning that
talking
war.
points.
He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that then I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run.
You're talking about
until
drugs.
he
I
said
just
the
want you to
horrible
look
job
at
he
how
did.
sweaty
He's destroying our
Trump's
country.
face is
I would
compared
be
to
very
Biden's,
happy to
'cause
be
they've been
someplace
talking about-
else, in a nice location someplace.
Trump's
and
the
again,
one on drugs,
no
just in case you can't
indictments,
notice.
no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Last minute,
We'll
guys.
see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Damn!
Live from
That's the way
Georgia.
to end it.
Have they ended it, though?
Ryan.
There will be a lot to say about what is going on in this debate. You're going to get our reaction
Turn them
as
down real
soon
quick.
as it is over. Plus, we've got
So with that final stretch that we're looking at, it's now 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Biden definitely came with some facts
Yes.
throughout this piece. There is a tight element looking at the two of them side by side, regardless of how frail, let's just be honest, how frail Joe Biden looks and how hoarse he sounds.
He definitely prepped quite a bit.
He may have over prepped a little bit, but I mean, no, he found his footing, right? He has his boxer legs underneath him. He was remembering the questions throughout all that rambling where I couldn't even keep up, remembering
Yes.
what the hell was going on. I want you to understand the level of cognitive that takes, where he's sitting there zoned in on what's being said by the malarkey to his right, and at the same time remembering what the question is to then jump back in and say it while taking shots at him. I don't even know what the hell Trump is really talking about. He definitely harped on the border. We knew that was going to be the case.
Yep.
But he really touched on, and maybe he is a little sad that he's not there taking photos with Kim Jong-un and Putin in the backseat of that car, right? Maybe he's mad that he's not in that photo op. Maybe he's mad about that. But at the same time, it's really interesting to see the attacks that are there.
Yeah.
But Biden got under his skin.
Yeah,
I
Biden
really
definitely.
feel Biden got under there.
Oh, he did. Every time he made that face and he puckered his lips up like he's about to kiss a fish.
No, man, those
That's
look
when
like an
he. That's
asshole.
when he's losing. He's like, he's
Those
losing
lips
it.
look like an asshole on an 80-year-old. That's what
Yes,
that
they
looks
do. But again, I just have to point out, because it was said so much by Trump's camp going into this, that they kept saying that Joe Biden's on drugs and he should be drug tested. Like, look at Trump's face. Like, he's sweating like a pig. You know, he doesn't. His eyes. Look at his.
What up,
eyes.
Kaylin? Welcome to the show, girl.
Oh,
You
is
made
Kaylin
it.
here?
You made it. What's up?
Nice. She will not be here tomorrow. She has other
Important.
plans.
Important
plans.
Very important plans, and
So,
we wish her the best. That's
yep.
all we could say.
That's all we'll say, and we
Mental-
will miss you and
It's
see
all
you
about
next
mental
week.
health, girl. You get all that mental health you need.
Yep,
In the best way possible.
every inch of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Well, let me
That's
have
so
some
good.
more.
We love you, Kaylin. We love you. We've been drinking. I've been drinking. I feel like Beyonce right now.
Yep.
So
But
yeah.
again, we will be on tomorrow. So
Yeah.
just to remind you, we will still be on our normal show tomorrow at our normal time, which is 8:00 Eastern, 5:00 Pacific.
That's right.
So
Like,
make sure you
hit
subscribe.
notifications.
You got
Let's
it.
do it, guys. We are one of the biggest communities. We are growing. You mentioned we're how many countries now?
10 or
10
11
countries. 10 or 11. Okay. All
Yep.
right. That's
Yep.
fantastic, man. The show's really been growing. It's really due to you guys for coming back, sharing us with friends, and definitely putting us out there. We really appreciate everything that you guys are bringing to the table because you make us what we are. So we really
Yes.
appreciate you guys.
So right now we are in the United States, Canada, Ireland, France, the UK, New Zealand, India, Australia, Netherlands, and Portugal.
All right. right. That's what's up, man. We see you guys.
So thank you. Big shout out. Canada and Ireland are coming in with like almost 5% of our downloads right now. So big shout out to our Canada and Ireland friends.
Show's back on, my man.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit, number one. He's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs. But he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers,
that was Obama,
instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor,
Brian the Defiant said, I trust Flint drinking water more than I trust Trump.
And take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the
I'm a
highest
veteran. The Choice Act came out under
the
Trump.
history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now.
Sorry, guys, don't really care about your analysis.
So real quick, I just want to touch on something about the presidents. Looking back just from George W. Bush to present with Biden, looking at how many days they averaged, you're looking at George W. Bush taking off 128 days for vacation, Obama taking off 41, the lowest of everyone, Donald Trump 95, and then Joe Biden taking off 93 days as of October 23rd. Okay. Is that actually known totals? Average days. So looking at just in general, how many days he was like actually in office versus how many days he was golfing and not actually doing the job, just listening to what he had to say. I think about really how much time he spent there doing deals and trying to build Trump Inc. versus taking care of America.
Well, and that was why presidents are supposed to divest from their personal things.
That's correct.
So that there's no conflict of interest. And that was one of the biggest things a lot of us liberals said was he never divested from his businesses. He was literally running Trump, International or whatever it is. He was running the Trump organization from behind the Resolute desk in the White House.
And that's not even counting executive time. Remember, they took that bullshit. How long?
And also remembering that if you go Google the records from the pharmacy in the White House and the West Wing, and go Google what they were giving out to Donald Trump and his staff. You will read that list and you will go, wow. Like the amount of drugs that they were giving to his staff and him were crazy. Like crazy. Here's something that I just want to read off to y'all real quick. So we keep talking about what each of these men have done. And you notice Trump didn't have a whole lot to stand on. Like he just kept going back to the border.
Right.
And here's some things that Biden can stand on. The Inflation Reduction Act is generating $1.7 trillion in U.S. investments. The CHIPS Act has created more than 84,000 jobs. Infrastructure and Jobs Act already started more than 40,000 projects. 201 federal judges have been appointed under him. Bipartisan gun reform and the first Office of Gun Violence Prevention have been started. Forgave $150 billion in student debt for 4 million borrowers. Collected $500 billion from millionaire and billionaire tax cheats. Unemployment below 4% for the longest stretch in 50 years. Added 700,000 construction jobs. Recorded level of new small businesses record level of new small business created. Largest ever investment to fight climate change, to cut pollution 50% by 2030, issued ruling to cut methane emissions by 80%, preserved more than 24 million acres of land for conservation, renewable energy surpassed coal for the first time ever, capped prescription drug prices for seniors and insulin at $35 a month for all providers, not just one, expanded veterans health care through the PACT Act, expanded overtime for employees making under $55,000 a year, signed the Respect for Marriage Act, approved over-the-counter birth control for the first time, reformed the Electoral Count Act to prevent another January 6th, pardoned thousands of people convicted of marijuana possession, required cash refunds for canceled flights, connected 10 million households to Wi-Fi, and funded 14,000 mental health professionals in schools. So when you ask me who I'm voting for, that's the guy I'm voting for.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you put it actually on paper and you actually talk about it, because I wish that he himself, Biden, could sell his vision more so. Yeah. But at the same time, as I've said to you, Joe Biden is very dangerous behind closed doors,
which is what we need.
At the negotiating table, right? When he's there at the negotiation, you see things are getting done.
Yeah.
Like you don't protect Israel by uniting Muslims and also Western allies together to defend against the Republic of Iran.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he mobilized everybody across the world to stop 300 missiles, was it? From striking all types of targets, being innocent civilians.
Yeah.
He stopped that. He mobilized everybody.
Yep.
That's phenomenal to think about in real time. Not even on just like, getting some bills passed. He literally has been stepping up to defend the world. And then him on the world stage for D-Day.
Yeah.
He's been really a shining star for America. And he's given his life to this, right? He really has. And yes, and he's a troubled father. I shouldn't say he's a troubled father. He's a father of a troubled son.
They said CNN is tripping. What debate did they watch? See, that's why I don't even want to hear. I watched what I watched. It was a rough start, but at the end of the day, comparing the two and what they delivered, it's not even a comparison.
How many times did the host have to remind Trump what the actual
question was? He never had to remind Biden, not once.
Biden literally stepped in and touched back on certain topics after those rambling, whatever the hell you want to call those rants.
Yep.
Not as good as yours. And one of those things that for Biden to come back in, I even said to you, I was like, I don't even know what the question is anymore. Biden came in, I go, that's what the question was. It was childcare.
Yep.
He was on it.
I love that you said that, because there was 2 times where Biden really did. He kind of went, answered a couple of things and fact checked Trump.
Yeah.
And then still managed to bring it back to what the original question was. And that showed me, I told you before the show, and I said this to a couple of people. I said, this is going to tell us if he's cognitively there.
Right.
The stuttering is to be expected, okay?
Yeah, that's him.
But the fact that he could cognitively keep track of the talking point and that he didn't really lose his place when it mattered. When Trump couldn't remember what the hell he was talking about, Biden was still able to come back. And so that gave me personally, that gave me okay, that's good.
So I want to give this.
If Biden would, because I was afraid in the first 2 questions, Biden seemed to get lost.
Yeah.
And I was
in the beginning, he was.
Yeah, the first 2 questions were rough, and I was like, oh, this isn't starting well.
We both started drinking more.
Yeah, we both started drinking more.
I want to give this to the fans real quick. I want to give this all to everybody in the chat. Just write down the name. Biden or Trump. Who do you think took it?
Yeah, there you go.
From what you watched, not what CNN's saying. I want to see what you guys think. So let's take a poll right here, right now. What do you think? Put it in. Biden or Trump? Just one word. Pick one. Which one do you think came out on top today? And do you think showed their best side to lead this country?
And I want to address this. So, Mike, he didn't look as energetic as he did during the State of the Union speech. I agree, and I think that part of the reason is you could tell by the hoarseness in his voice that they worked him. They prepped him for this, and I think that prepping for State of the Union, where you have a teleprompter, versus prepping for a debate where you don't you kind of have a good idea what the questions are going to be, but you don't necessarily know. And then you're also responding to the other person, on the other side of the stage. So I think it's a little different. And the prep, I would imagine, is probably a little more vigorous. And that's what I think we saw. We saw that, an 80-year-old dude that's been put through the ringer for the last probably week, is probably going to go home and get some well-deserved rest tonight.
Shit. I got a 2-year-old birthday party this weekend. You want to talk about me being hoarse? All right, I'm 40 and I'm about to feel that shit come Sunday morning. It is what it is. So, I'm not sitting here on stage arguing with an old man.
A
lot of Bidens on here. We need to get you guys on CNN then. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, really. Like I said, I think it was as big of a crap show as I expected from Trump's side. And in terms of Biden, I think I kind of agree. I wish he could have shown up with that energetic look and that vigor that he had during the State of the Union.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, I think we have to be realistic of what that man was probably just put through.
Yeah.
Prepping for a debate isn't easy. And
it looks like Trump didn't even prep.
Yeah, it looked like Trump only prepped three talking points,
Looks like Trump just came from court. I don't know what you think.
I mean, look, I think Trump stepped in it several times. I think there was 3 times that I can think of off the top of my head where he just straight up lied, that we can verify that he lied.
Yeah. He kind of confused his own presidency with Biden's.
It seemed like it. It seemed like it a couple times. Again, the insulin thing. I think it's worth noting again that Biden and his administration have worked out a deal with all the companies.
All the companies.
And
that's correct.
Trump had only worked out a deal with one.
Right.
So that's not the same thing. And again, I'd also like to mention that Trump had 4 years to replace the Affordable Care Act, a.k.a. Obamacare, and he couldn't get it done.
Right.
They tried twice.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
So, when he talks about, Joe Biden not delivering, I just read you off the list of him delivering over 24 times.
Hey, Ryan, why is it that Trump handed over a country without a border wall? What happened?
What do you mean?
Trump never got the wall built.
Oh, well, Mexico never paid for the wall to get built.
As much as he talked about, the border this, the border that, he never got that border wall built.
Oh, I mean, to be fair, Steve Bannon, one of the gentlemen that he pardoned, was a little too busy stealing a couple $1 million from the Southern Border Fund. So,
Oh, the funds weren't there? They weren't there
yeah.
when they went to go cash the check. Okay.
And Mexico, the president of Mexico at the time told him to kick rocks.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Oh, yeah.
Again,
but the border, though, Ryan, but the border.
I live an hour from the border. Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. The dude lives in Florida, D.C., and New York. He wouldn't know a border if it hit him in the fucking head. Like, I'm not saying that there are no issues at the border and it's perfect and hunky-dory, but to ignore the fact that Joe Biden has sent resources to the Border Patrol, to ignore the fact that there have been record apprehensions at the border this year and last year.
I want you to see one of the comments. Nurse, no, this is a good one.
Oh, okay.
What is it?
Which one?
Our little nurse
thing?
friend. No, our nurse friend talking about her husband worked on that project. Just read that one quote. Put it up for us. 3 down from the top.
My husband worked on it, and it was definitely a fence. I know. I'm sure she's probably seen it, but the photo, it was here in Arizona, actually. It was part of the wall, and there was a big storm that rolled through, and you just see the wall falling down. And it was hilarious.
Definitely a fence.
Yeah.
That's why I just love it.
That's why a lot of the times I call it a border barrier.
Yeah.
Because it's not a wall.
No.
Like, it's a border barrier that can be neutralized with the Sawzall, a ladder, and some rope in about 2.5 minutes. We've seen it repeatedly on YouTube, done daily.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they roll up with a flatbed truck, they put the ladder up against the fence, the person crawls to the top, they've got a harness on and a rope, they jump over the top, the 2 dudes on the flatbed lower them down with the rope, they take the harness off, throw it back through the freaking fence, they run off because they're already on American land, and the 2 drive off, and it takes 2 minutes.
Hey, man, if Hamas taught anybody anything, build a fucking tunnel. All right? I'm just saying.
I mean, they do that too.
Off border walls, I'm just saying in general. You can just build a tunnel.
That's why
what they did
we
in
need,
Egypt.
look,
They did in Egypt. I'm just saying in general. It's not going to do anything.
We need to develop the technology. Like I said, if you want to talk about border security here, down in Arizona, more accurately down at Fort Huachuca, which is down in Sierra Vista, Arizona, is on the border, and we have a blimp that goes up and sits over the border all day. The only time it doesn't go up is if the weather's really, really bad. Then they don't send it up.
So you want to do a Chinese weather balloons? What you want to do?
I mean, kind of. But it's a big white blimp and it sits up. But the technology that it has on the blimp is insane.
How about we build with the neighboring countries, because we don't have this issue with Canada? How about we build with our neighboring countries?
Well, we do. They just don't talk about it as much.
How about Canadians are not running to get in here?
No, Americans are fucking running to Canada.
Right. The biggest
they got universal health care there, bro. You know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right. I thought about that. Going from Detroit to Windsor. Yeah, we were doing that.
I'm not going back. I'm not going back.
I don't know if I'm going back. They're like, why were you here?
So just for those, if you grew up in Detroit, then you know this. But if you didn't grow up in Detroit, then you don't.
During our time.
Yeah, during our time. I'm sure it's probably changed now. But back in the late 90s or very early 2000s, you could go over to Canada and drink when you were 19. So with the group of friends that I had growing up, which is probably why I had so many issues, the rule was whoever's birthday it was didn't walk out of the bar.
Yeah.
And
all you needed was a birth certificate. You didn't need a passport.
Yeah, you didn't need any of that.
You didn't need documentation. You just walked in, they knew you were American, and they wanted you to get the hell out. So,
and they wanted your money, then they wanted to get you out.
Yes. But the Border Patrol knew
shout
you
out
were
to
drunk.
Shout out to the dancers at $1 Million Club, by the way. $1 Million, that was a bad.
Taking us back to strip.
$1 Million strip club, baby. Woo! That was a hell of a night.
That was a hell of a weekend. That's all I got.
Yeah, bro, it was good. Yeah. Sorry, now I'm thinking about that.
Yes, I know. Show's over. Jen, don't pay attention.
Oh, good Lord.
It's a past life. So but with all that said, I'm saying to you that we can get to the root of the issue where it's like, why are people flocking over here? What's going on in their countries? How do we build a better relationship with Mexico, for example, where most of this does stop in Mexico, and not with Mexico at the U.S., but Mexico at its borders? How do we build the infrastructure that helps out everybody all around? And I do understand, too, on top of that, when we're looking at a global crisis of weather conditions and who is actually going to suffer the most, it's those countries that are lower than us. And I don't mean in stature. I mean more so of just on the closer to the equator, just geographically.
Yeah.
You know, these are the countries that are going to literally suffer from like tsunamis, hurricanes, all these things. And they're looking for higher ground.
Droughts.
And in general, and droughts, you know, in general, they're looking for the milk and honey.
Yep.
Where can they go to survive and give a better place for their families? And, you know, we're this country that is put on this pedestal. We are literally doing better than every other country out of a global pandemic. Why do you think they're flocking here? You know, so how do we, instead of using our resources for bombs and destroying, how can we actually use our resources to actually help build and become a country that actually gets people going and set up shop, you know? And that's the things that I think about with like our conversations, Ryan, and just in general of how we use our superpower, which is being this castle on the hilltop. How do we use our superpower to really help retool and reshape the world in a better way where it helps them, not so much in our vision, but helps them to survive the next 100 years and keep it going.
Yeah. Yep.
But you look at the arguments in the conversation that were right there for us to see, and it's quite telling.
No, it was. Like I said, we already knew that the two options, you know, weren't like blowing our coattails up. You know what I mean? And I don't really think much is going to change after this debate. No. To be got honest with you, somebody said it here. Somebody said it here, and somebody said it on TikTok. You know, I don't think the people that were going to vote for Biden yesterday are not going to vote for him today. Yeah. And I doubt that many Trump supporters are going to, you know, decide to vote for Biden today, unfortunately. You know, they're still buying into the Biden is destroying our country and letting in illegals and the borders open, and you know they're all registering as Democrat. Like, can anybody answer me that one either? They always say, "Oh, all the immigrants coming in are voting for Joe Biden." Why do you assume that all the immigrants coming in are going to vote for a Democrat? Like that, it's just another one of those things that just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, whatever, you say what you're going to say.
Well, my brother, this has been a very enlightful and insightful experience to do it live, to watch Trump.
And I'm going to have a headache tomorrow morning. I can tell you that already. But
all
no,
I can
seriously.
say to you is it's a showtime tomorrow. So bring all of that drama with you. Yep. That's all I got to say.
No, and it was awesome watching it with you and everybody that tuned in. We have 7,800 people watching right now. So apparently a lot of you care. Just remember this one thing. Whoever you're going to vote for, just make sure you get your ass out and vote. Yeah. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Get out and vote. Make your voice heard, because the more people that vote, the better off we're going to be. And what I mean by that is because the more voices that are heard, hopefully the better off our representation will get over time. Absolutely. And right now we just need to make sure that that we do our best to educate voters going into November, educating them to what facts are. And I think that tonight Joe Biden did a pretty darn good job of educating people to what the facts are versus, you know, the fiction that Donald Trump spins. So with that, we will see you tomorrow at our normal time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. We will be here to talk about all of our normal political nonsense and end the show with our positives as we always do. So make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification button before you jump out tonight. And we will see you guys. I almost had it. And I will see you guys tomorrow. We love you. Thank you for the support. As always, much love. Keep fighting and stay safe.
Much love, man.